He made these claims, but he's just making assertions. Human rights leads to better quality of life. It leads to lower crime. He just asserted it. The only statistic that he cited was the comparative murder homicide rate between Japan and Saudi Arabia. So this is a very selective presentation. So let me just bring you the link right here. Okay, do you see this? Okay, this is per 100,000. So you have all these countries. They're in Africa, Eastern Africa, Eastern Africa, Eastern Africa, Middle Africa, Middle Africa, Middle Africa. Oh wait, this is not organized. Sorry. Okay, yeah, this is the list I had seen. El Salvador. Is El Salvador a Muslim country? They have 52 murders, intentional homicide per 100,000. U.S. Virgin Islands, Jamaica, Lesotho, in Sub-Saharan Africa, Honduras, Belize. These are not Muslim countries. Trinidad, Mexico, Puerto Rico. So what's the explanation? This is, as we'll talk about, the Botswana question, because you want to make this claim about a correlation between human rights, respecting human rights, and metrics like poverty, metrics like homicide rate. But that's not borne out because all of these countries are human rights abiders. They are democracies. And even within countries, as we'll talk about, the murder rate varies in different parts of the U.S. Different cities have much higher murder rates, homicide rates, even though the whole country has the same federal law. So what's the explanation for that? But I don't want to jump the gun. We'll get into this, but I just wanted to show. Really, there's just a correlation between GDP per capita and crime rate. So the higher GDP countries, like in North America and Western Europe, they're going to have higher, or lower rather, murder and homicide rate. It's going to be lower, but it's just based on, it's highly correlated to GDP. So yeah, that's an explanation, but you still have to explain why their GDPs are so much higher than all these other countries that have human rights, democracies. That's the fundamental question. So you haven't really addressed that by referring to the homicide rate. Also, I didn't get to say this on the stream, but there's an important book called How Are Muslims Unique? Let me actually pull it up. Oh, Are Muslims Distinctive? Sorry, I mistitled it. Are Muslims Distinctive? A Look at the Evidence. And this is by Stephen Fish. This book assesses how Muslims and non-Muslims differ and do not differ in the contemporary world. Okay, so let me actually put this on the screen so you can see it too. Okay. The text reveals that in some areas, Muslims and non-Muslims differ less than is commonly imagined. Muslims are not inclined to favor the fusion of religious and political authority, or especially prone to mass political violence. Yet there are differences. These include gender inequality is more severe among Muslims. Muslims are averse to homosexuality and other controversial behaviors, and democracy is rare in the Muslim world. Okay, so that's basically what we know. Other areas of divergence bear the marks of a Muslim advantage. Homicide rates and class-based inequalities are less severe amongst Muslims than non-Muslims. Okay, that's the statistic. So you can read, you can go to this book by Stephen Fish and see the numbers, and it's a stark difference. The homicide rates in Muslim countries, and I made this distinction in the debate because someone might say, oh, but in our Western country, the Muslims are committing more crime. Okay, that's a separate phenomenon because these are Muslims who have been stripped from a religious environment. They've been stripped from a wholesome Muslim country, society that has large family, that has family values, has, all of these important things, and they're moving for economic reasons purely, not because of some amazing values that the West has, but purely for economic reasons. They're migrating to the West, and then they're going to likely fall into more crime, you could argue, because they are, living in such a toxic environment, because they're living in such a valueless, secular, atheistic, consumerist world in the West. And that can drive people crazy when you go from one important, solid, stable environment into this kind of clown show. Then it can drive people, unfortunately, to higher crime rates. Now, again, I'm not going to present a full argument just casually off the top of my head in this live stream, but this is the argument that I'm inclined to think. I'm not racist. I don't say that, Muslims that are coming into the West are just inherently violent and inherently prone to rape and all of this kind of nonsense that nationalists and these conservative, right-wing, alt-right people, they want to denigrate Muslims, and a lot of racist bile is coming from them when they're attacking Muslims. And look, I can concede that you have these kinds of statistics on crime, but it's actually an indictment of the secular liberal system. It's an indictment of the structural inequality that has been created between the West and the rest, the global South, this perpetual inequality and dominance of one people over the whole world with this brutal liberal human rights system. That's the problem. That's what's causing these issues with immigration and so forth. So why don't you address that? Like, if you really want to address immigration, I mean, there's a lot of, gotcha kind of one-liners that you can give, but you can say that, okay, well, let's address immigration. Like, you're tired of people from Mali in Africa, Muslims from Mali, or Muslims from Libya, Muslims from Algeria coming to France, coming to Italy. You don't want that. Coming to the UK, you don't want that. Okay, well, return all of the money that you stole, all of the resources that you extracted while killing millions. Just give them the money back. Give them the money back. Give them the resources that you usurped, and then you will create less of an inequality between the two countries. And then these migrants won't be desperate where they're risking their lives of their children to come to basically live a better life. Like, that's the motivation. And it's been created because of the actions of the West, because of the actions of this liberal monster, this system. So take responsibility. Don't say, Muslims are just backwards, barbaric. No, our societies have lower homicide rates. Look at what Stephen Fish says. Our societies have lower homicide rates, lower levels of violence. And if there is violence, it's usually because of agitation by the West, occupation by the West, brutality by the West, dictators being propped up by the West. Give me another explanation. How can you blame it on Islam when all of these non-Muslim countries that we saw, El Salvador, Jamaica, Haiti, they're suffering from a lot of violence, and they're not Muslim?